It was a sunny morning in May 2025 at Mar-a-Lago when Donald Trump made a decision that would change his presidency forever. Flipping through the TV channels, he saw a report on Ibrahim Traoré's growing influence in world politics. "This African kid is getting too much attention," Trump muttered to his staff. "We need to show him who's really in charge of the world." His press secretary cautioned, "Mr. President, Traoré has been very articulate in international debates." "Articulate?" Trump laughed dismissively. "He's 35. I was doing international business when he was in high school. I'm going to show him the difference between a real leader and a lucky kid." Trump personally called Fox News producers. "I want a live debate with Ibrahim Traoré. A full-hour unedited broadcast globally. I'm going to teach this African how real politics works." Sean Hannity tried to warn him. "Mr. President, Traoré has a reputation for being very articulate." "Sean, I'm Donald Trump," interrupted the president. "I have built an empire. I have become president twice. I have been negotiating with world leaders for decades. A boy from a country nobody knows is no match for me." Within hours, an official invitation was sent. To Ouagadougou. Trump was so confident that he did not even ask for a briefing on Ibrahim, a fatal mistake that would cost him dearly. In Burkina Faso, Ibrahim received the invitation with surprise and caution. "Dr. Ouedraogo," he told the foreign minister, "Trump is seriously underestimating me. Men like him consider Africa inferior by definition." "Will you accept the invitation, President?" "Of course," Ibrahim smiled. "It will be an educational opportunity for him and for the world. Prepare a complete dossier on Trump. If he wants to measure competence, we will give him exactly what he asked for." While Trump spent weekends playing golf at Mar-a-Lago, confident that he would win easily, Ibrahim Traoré immersed himself in meticulous preparation. At the presidential palace in Burkina Faso, teams worked 18 hours a day, analyzing every aspect of Trump's presidency. "I want everything," Ibrahim told his research team. "Domestic policies, foreign relations, economic decisions, successes, failures, contradictions, especially contradictions." Dr. Alphonse Ouedraogo was leading research on Trump's African policy. "President, he has cut foreign aid to Africa by 67%, cancelled life-saving health programs, but increased arms sales to African dictators." Fatimata Sawadogo, the economy minister, analyzed trade policies. "Trump promised to protect American jobs, but the trade deficit increased by $200 billion during his previous term. Rhetoric did not match results." Meanwhile, in Washington, Trump was dismissing briefings from his staff. "I don't need to study African boy," he said dismissively. "I'm going to use charm and natural experience. Plus, the audience will be American. They'll support their president." Aides tried to insist, "Mr. President, at least review African policies." "My Africa policy is simple," Trump interrupted. "America first. We're not going to waste money on countries that can't help us in return." Sean Hannity, worried about the reputation of his show, made a final attempt. "Mr. President, Traoré has a master's degree from the Sorbonne, an MBA from the London School of Economics." "Sean, are you getting nervous?" Trump laughed. "I have an MBA from Wharton, and most importantly, I have real experience building businesses, not just studying books." Trump's overconfidence was about to collide with Ibrahim's meticulous preparation. The contrast could not be greater, an American president relying on instinctive arrogance versus a young African leader armed with devastating facts. The evening of May 29, 2025, arrived with unprecedented global anticipation. Fox News had transformed the studio into a setting worthy of a historic event, with 89 countries broadcasting simultaneously. Trump arrived confidently, waving to cameras as if it were a campaign rally. On the other side of the world, Ibrahim stood serenely in his presidential office. "Good evening, America and the world," Sean Hannity began. "Tonight we have a historic showdown between President Donald Trump and President Ibrahim Traoré on global leadership in the 21st century." The screen split to show Trump in the plush Fox studio and Ibrahim in the elegant but simple presidential setting. "President Trump," Hannity began, "you asked for this debate. What is your message to President Traoré?" Trump leaned forward with a cocky smile. "Ibrahim, first I want to say that I respect your ambition, but real leadership requires experience that you simply do not have. I built a billion-dollar empire. I led the largest economy in the world. And with all due respect, Trump continued condescendingly, Burkina Faso is not exactly a world power. America is a leader for good reason. We have experience, resources, power that smaller countries cannot match. Ibrahim smiled politely. President Trump, thank you for your words, but I would like to correct a few inaccuracies in your presentation. First, on building empires. I inherited a country devastated by decades of bad governance. In 3 years, we transformed the economy, reduced poverty by 34%, built universal healthcare. You inherited a prosperous economy from Obama and left a deficit of $7.8 trillion. Maybe we should discuss who really builds versus who destroys. Trump became visibly irritated. That's fake news. My economy was the best in history. Data from the Federal Reserve itself shows otherwise, Ibrahim replied calmly. But I didn't come here to discuss the past. I came here to talk about effective leadership. Sean Hannity sensed that the debate was already taking an unexpected turn. Trump had completely underestimated his opponent. Trump, realizing that Ibrahim would not be easily intimidated, decided to try a domination tactic. Ibrahim, you are young, so I will teach you something about real politics. Leadership is about strength, about making deals that benefit your country first. America First worked because I put American interests above all else. Burkina Faso should focus on its internal problems instead of trying to be globally relevant. Ibrahim paused, smiling patiently, which irritated Trump even more. President Trump, interesting perspective. But let's examine the results of your America First policy. On the screen appeared graphs prepared by Ibrahim's team. During your previous term, America lost influence in 67 countries. Trade deficit increased by $200 billion. Traditional allies reduced cooperation by 45%. Meanwhile, the Burkina Faso First policy I implemented improved relations with all our neighbors, increased regional trade by 340%, and transformed the country into a respected broker. Trump interrupted furiously. These numbers are fake news. My presidency was the greatest success story in American history. President Trump, Ibrahim said calmly, these data come from agencies of the American government itself. Federal Reserve, Department of Commerce, Pentagon. I can provide specific sources. More importantly, leadership is not measured by how well it benefits your country. It is measured by your ability to inspire other leaders, build bridges, resolve conflicts. How many international conflicts have you resolved versus how many have you created? Ibrahim asked with devastating innocence. Trump was visibly blushing. I resolved a lot of conflicts, made historic peace deals. Which ones specifically survived the end of your presidency? Ibrahim retorted. And how many new conflicts have emerged because of your unilateral decisions? Sean Hannity tried to help Trump by changing the subject, but the damage was done. Ibrahim had systematically dismantled Trump's narrative of success using irrefutable data. The African boy was giving the American president a lesson. Trump, realizing he was losing control of the narrative, tried to attack personally. Ibrahim, you came to power through a military coup. How can you talk about democratic leadership? Ibrahim smiled. He had expected exactly this line of attack. President Trump, a fascinating question coming from someone who tried to overturn a democratically decided election on January 6, 2021. The room fell silent. Ibrahim continued relentlessly. We removed a corrupt government that had lost popular legitimacy. You tried to remove a government that had gained popular legitimacy. Since then, we have held 3 free elections with 89% turnout. You tried to prevent the counting of democratically cast votes. Trump exploded. That's a lie. 2020 was a stolen election. President Trump, Ibrahim said calmly, 60 American courts, including judges you appointed, have rejected your claims. Even your own vice president upheld the legitimacy of the election. Compare, I took power to protect democracy. You tried to subvert democracy to maintain power. More devastating data appeared on the screen. Popular approval rating. Ibrahim Traoré, 87%. Donald Trump never got above 49% during his presidency. Maybe Ibrahim suggested gently. The problem is not how we get to power, but what we do with it. Trump was now gesticulating wildly. You don't understand the pressures of leading a superpower. You're right, Ibrahim. Agreed. I don't understand how someone can have all these resources and still fail to solve basic problems like healthcare, infrastructure, social inequality. With 50 times less budget, we solved these problems in Burkina Faso. Maybe it's not a question of resources, but of competence. Sean Hannity was visibly uncomfortable, realizing that his guest was being systematically demolished on live TV. Trump seemed ready to explode with rage, but worse still, his attempts at a response sounded increasingly desperate and incoherent. Trump, completely losing his composure, launched into thinly veiled racist attacks. Ibrahim, let's be honest here. Africa has always had a problem with governance. You don't have a democratic tradition like America. Ibrahim paused, his expression remaining serene, but his eyes showing steely cold. President Trump, thank you for revealing your true attitudes about Africa. Let's talk about democratic traditions. South Africa ended apartheid through a peaceful transition. America still struggles with systemic racism centuries later. Ghana has had peaceful transfers of power. Since 1992, America has had a president who refused to accept electoral defeat. On the screen appeared global statistics. Global Democracy Index. 23 African countries rank above the United States in democratic quality. Trump tried to interrupt. These rankings are rigged by organizations that America created. And funds, Ibrahim replied dryly. Freedom House, Transparency International, all show American democratic decline during his presidency. But let's get to the point, Ibrahim continued, his voice gaining authority. You brought me here thinking it would be easy to humiliate a young African leader in front of an American audience. You found out that some of us have studied, prepared, and are not intimidated by bullies who mistake arrogance for leadership. Trump was now visibly shaking with anger. I am Donald Trump. I don't need lessons from an African boy. Clearly you do, Ibrahim said calmly. Because an African boy just gave you a masterclass in preparation, respect for facts, and dignified leadership. The difference between us, President Trump, I came prepared for intellectual debate. You came expecting to be intimidated by shouting. Sean Hannity tried desperately. Gentlemen, let's keep it civil. I kept it civil, Ibrahim said. President Trump, who chose personal attacks when his arguments failed. The world watched in shock as the American president's complete meltdown was systematically dismantled by the 35-year-old African leader. Trump, completely out of control, stood up from his chair and began gesturing wildly. This is ridiculous. This kid is disrespecting the President of the United States. Ibrahim remained calmly seated, his hands folded, watching Trump with an expression of genuine pity. President Trump, please sit down. You are embarrassing your country in front of the world. I don't take orders from an African, Trump yelled, pointing aggressively at the camera. America is the greatest country in the world. We are not going to be lectured by a third world country. Sean Hannity was in total panic. Mr. President, please. No, Trump yelled. This kid needs to learn who's boss. Ibrahim, your entire country is not worth a single American state. Ibrahim sighed softly. President Trump, thank you for demonstrating exactly why America is losing global influence. World leaders don't want partners who scream when confronted with facts. They want statesmen who debate civilly. Your behavior confirms everything the world suspects, that you rule by emotion, not reason. Trump was now pacing the studio completely out of control. You Africans should be grateful. America gives billions in aid. Aid that you cut by 67%, Ibrahim replied calmly. And that too often comes with conditions that perpetuate dependency rather than promote development. President Trump, you are proving my point about the difference between us. I respond with data, you respond with shouting. That is exactly why countries are turning away from America. Not because they hate Americans, but because they are tired of being treated as inferior by leaders who mistake volume for authority. The global broadcast showed a devastating contrast. A calm and articulate Ibrahim versus a Trump having a complete public breakdown. It was an unprecedented international humiliation for the American president. As Trump continued his meltdown live on air, global social media instantly exploded. Trump meltdown and Ibrahim wins went viral within minutes, with clips shared millions of times. I have never seen an American president so completely destroyed live on air, tweeted a BBC journalist. Ibrahim Traoré has just given a masterclass in maintaining dignity under pressure. CNN cut regular programming to analyze the meltdown. This is the defining moment of the Trump presidency, being systematically dismantled by a leader of 35 years whom he clearly underestimated. In the Fox News control room, executives ran in panic. Cut to commercial, now. But it was too late. The damage was being broadcast live to 89 countries. In world capitals, leaders watched in fascination and horror. Emmanuel Macron called aides. "My God, Trump is having a complete meltdown on global television." Xi Jinping told the Politburo, "America is showing weakness we did not expect. This young African has completely exposed them." Putin laughed at his generals. Traoré did in 1 hour what it took us years to achieve. He showed the world that Trump is a spoiled brat. Returning to the studio, Ibrahim made a final devastating remark. "President Trump, thank you. For this demonstration, you showed the world the difference between real leadership and reality show performance. Real leaders maintain composure under pressure. They respond with facts, not shouting. They build bridges. They don't burn them when they're upset." Trump tried one last outburst. "You will pay for this. America will..." "America won't do anything," Ibrahim interrupted calmly, "because the whole world just saw that the emperor has no clothes. Thank you, President Trump, for giving me a platform to show that Africa produces leaders that America should respect, not bully." Sean Hannity, desperate, cut to commercial as Trump continued to shout, incoherently. It was the end of an era, the moment when America lost global moral authority on national television. In the 24 hours following Trump's meltdown, shockwaves rippled through Washington and around the world. Senior Republicans began to publicly distance themselves from the president. "President Trump's behavior has been embarrassing to our nation," Mitch McConnell declared in a carefully worded statement. "America deserves more dignified leadership." Democrats were more blunt. "Trump has shown the world that he is temperamentally unfit for the presidency," said Nancy Pelosi. "To be systematically defeated by a foreign leader and then have a public tantrum is disqualifying." International media were brutal. "American president showed himself to be a spoiled brat," editorialized the Financial Times. Ibrahim Traoré emerged as a voice of reason while Trump revealed himself to be unstable. The Times of London was even harsher. "America lost all credibility as president had childish breakdown, confronted with basic facts by competent leader." Wall Street reacted immediately. The Dow Jones fell 847 points in a single day as global investors lost confidence in the stability of American leadership. "Markets cannot tolerate unpredictable leadership," explained a Goldman Sachs analyst. "Trump's meltdown suggests domestic chaos that is affecting the global economy." Meanwhile, Ibrahim was being bombarded with international invitations. The European Union invited him to make a special address to Parliament. China offered a full state visit. Even America's traditional allies wanted to meet a leader who had exposed the weaknesses of the American empire. In Burkina Faso, there was spontaneous national celebration. "President Ibrahim has shown that Africa no longer accepts bullying," chanted crowds in Ouagadougou. "The whole world has seen our dignity." Trump, isolated at Mar-a-Lago, refused to speak to the press. Aides reported that he was incandescent with rage and plotting revenge. But the damage was done. Presidential authority had been irreparably damaged by a young leader he had dismissively challenged. Ibrahim Traoré did something that the American political opposition never managed, observed a CNN analyst. He exposed Trump as a fraud in front of the entire world. 6 months after the debate that shocked the world, the geopolitical transformation was complete and irreversible. Trump never recovered politically from the meltdown, facing mounting pressure to resign. Ibrahim Traoré had become the world's most respected statesman. Ibrahim was in Davos, addressing the World Economic Forum as the keynote speaker. 6 months ago, the American president challenged me thinking it would be an easy humiliation. he told an audience of world leaders. He discovered that underestimating someone based on age or nationality is a dangerous mistake. Applause echoed for 5 minutes. CEOs, prime ministers and presidents stood in a standing ovation that had never been given to an African leader in Davos. Debating Trump taught the world a valuable lesson. Leadership does not come from intimidation or volume. It comes from preparation, integrity and respect for facts. Time magazine had named him Person of the Year. Ibrahim Traoré has redefined global diplomacy, showing that wisdom has no borders and that dignity always trumps arrogance. Harvard offered him a tenured professorship. Oxford created the Traoré Center for Dignified Leadership. The Sorbonne named its main auditorium in his honor. Trump, facing impeachment proceedings for the 3rd time, was politically finished. The Ibrahim meltdown was the straw that broke the camel's back. A Republican strategist explained, the party can no longer defend insanity. In a delightful irony, America was now asking for advice on effective leadership for Burkina Faso. We want to understand the Traoré model, admitted Acting Secretary of State. How does a small country produce a leader who commands global respect? Ibrahim, ever gracious, replied, America remains a great nation. The problem has never been the American people, but leaders who confuse power with authority. Real authority comes from serving others, not dominating them. A year later, Ibrahim was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for redefining international diplomacy through the example of dignified leadership. In his acceptance speech, he said, Trump has given me the greatest gift, a platform to show that Africa deserves respect. Thank you, Donald, for underestimating me so completely. The young man Trump had tried to humiliate had become the most respected leader in the world, while Trump became a case study on the dangers of narcissistic leadership.